My husband left me alone on our wedding night. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My husband left our wedding suite before midnight and never came back. I said that sentence out loud once, to the empty room, because hearing it in my own voice somehow made it more real than the untouched champagne, the half-melted ice bucket, and the white satin train pulled around my feet like something dead. My veil was still pinned into my hair. One false eyelash had started peeling loose. My lipstick was stamped onto the rim of a water glass Adrian had poured for me and never finished. At 11:17 p.m., he kissed my forehead and said, "Give me 10 minutes, Em. My mom's upset about something with the car service." He smiled when he said it. Calm, warm, almost amused, like the night was still ours. At 11:31, I texted, "Everything okay?" At 11:42, "Are you coming back?" At 11:56, "Adrian, you're scaring me." By 12:08, the wedding planner had knocked softly and asked if she should send up the dessert tray. I lied and said we were tired. At 12:21, Tessa came in without waiting for permission, took one look at my face, and locked the door behind her. "He's not downstairs," she said. I stared at her like I didn't understand English anymore. "What do you mean, not downstairs?" "I mean his groomsman thought he was with you. Valet says he left the property 20 minutes ago." The room tilted. I remember gripping the edge of the vanity so hard my acrylic nail bent backward. Pain snapped through my finger, and I welcomed it. It felt cleaner than confusion. "No," I said. "No, he wouldn't leave. Not tonight." Tessa crossed the room and crouched in front of me, still in her bridesmaid dress, one heel in her hand because she'd apparently been searching the hotel in bare feet. "Emma, listen to me." I called him 6 times. Straight to voicemail. I dialed again anyway. It rang once, then died. The silence after that was worse than crying. Crying would have made sense. Silence just sat there, heavy and humiliating, while I looked around at rose petals, candlelight, a folded lace robe embroidered MRS, veil, and 2 suitcases packed for a honeymoon Adrian had planned himself. Then my phone lit up with a message from him. I almost wished the screen had stayed dark for 1 minute longer. His message said, "I'm sorry. I need a few hours to think. Please don't make a scene." That was it. No explanation. No "I love you." No emergency. Just a neat little sentence that turned my wedding night into a hostage situation where I was expected to protect the dignity of the man who'd abandoned me. Tessa read it over my shoulder and made a sharp laugh. "Don't make a scene? He vanishes from his own wedding, and you're supposed to manage optics?" I should have listened to her, because she had seen pieces of Adrian I kept sanding smooth in my mind. Most people saw the version of him that knew how to lower his voice at the right moment, remember birthdays, tip generously, and touch the small of my back like I was the center of his universe. That was the man I fell in love with 2 years earlier, when he started talking to me in a bookstore cafe and noticed I folded corners on paperbacks because I liked stories to look lived in. I was a project coordinator at a children's nonprofit. Adrian worked in luxury real estate development, dressed like every button was part of a strategy, and made expensive taste seem effortless. He sent soup when I had the flu. He drove across town to fix a flat tire. He learned my coffee order after hearing it once. There were warning signs, but they came wrapped in charm. He kept parts of his schedule vague. He said his job required discretion. He never liked being photographed unexpectedly. Once, when I joked about how many passcodes he had on his phone, he smiled and said, "Healthy privacy keeps relationships alive." Another time, I found him in my kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at a spreadsheet on his laptop. He snapped it shut so fast it felt adolescent. When I asked what was wrong, he kissed my temple and said, "Just cleaning up a mess my mother made." Diane always hovered around our relationship like she had final approval rights. She adored the wedding because it looked expensive. She adored me when I matched the image she wanted for her son. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Adrian toasted me at our engagement dinner and said, "Emma makes everything feel safe." I didn't know then how often liars talk about safety right before they disappear. And one memory suddenly refused to stay harmless anymore. The memory that kept replaying wasn't romantic. It was from 43 minutes before Adrian disappeared. We had just finished the formal dances. My cheeks hurt from smiling, and my dress had started feeling heavier with every hug. Adrian had leaned in during dinner and said, "After this, we're gone. Just you and me." I remember believing him so completely that I almost cried. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down, and something in his face hardened. Not panic. Recognition. Work? I asked. Nothing important, he said, too quickly. A minute later, Diane appeared at his elbow with that tight smile she wore when she was angry in public. Adrian, sweetheart, now. He stood up, so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. I watched them cross the edge of the ballroom and disappear behind a curtain near the service hallway. At the time, I told myself it was probably family drama. Diane always found a way to become the emotional center of events that had nothing to do with her. 10 minutes later, Adrian came back composed and weirdly affectionate. He kissed my hand in front of everyone. He asked the photographer for more couple shots, even though we'd already done plenty. He kept checking the entrance. What happened? I whispered. My mother being my mother. Then I noticed two things. His overnight bag, the leather one he'd packed for the honeymoon suite, was gone from under the gift table where we'd left our things. And his wallet, which he'd forgotten on the sweetheart table twice that week, was suddenly in his inside pocket. At 10:58, I saw him near the bar with a man in a dark suit I didn't recognize. They weren't talking like friends. The stranger handed Adrian a cream envelope. Adrian slid it under his jacket and looked straight past me when I waved. 20 minutes later, he found me near the elevators, kissed my forehead, and gave me the line about Diane being upset over the car service. Back in the bridal suite, Tessa sat on the carpet beside me and said, "Start from the last normal moment. Don't protect him. Tell it exactly." So I did. The suit, the envelope, the bag, Diane. When I finished, Tessa's jaw tightened. "Emma, that doesn't sound like cold feet." Then my phone buzzed again, and this time his lie came fully dressed. The second message came at 12:34 a.m. Mom had a health scare. I'm taking her home. Please go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. I read it 3 times. Then I looked at Tessa. He says Diane had a health scare. Tessa pulled up her call history. Interesting, because I called Diane 8 minutes ago, and she answered on the second ring. I felt my stomach drop. What? She was whispering, but she picked up. Said she was in the lobby restroom and Adrian was handling something for her. That was the moment confusion started curdling into humiliation. Not because I fully understood what was happening yet, but because other people did not need to understand it to witness it. They only needed eyes. By 1 in the morning, the ballroom had become a graveyard of expensive joy. Staff were stacking chairs. My aunt hugged me too hard and kept saying, "There has to be an explanation." 2 of Adrian's cousins left without saying goodbye. One bridesmaid asked whether we'd been fighting. I heard someone in the hallway say, "Maybe he found something out." That sentence burned worse than anything. Tessa marched downstairs in my spare flats and came back 20 minutes later with information nobody had volunteered. The valet remembered Adrian because he'd insisted on retrieving his own car from the private garage instead of using the front drive where guests could see him. He left at 11:23. Alone, as far as the valet knew. Fast. Did he look upset? I asked. Tessa held my gaze. No. He looked focused. At 1:27, Diane finally appeared outside the bridal suite in a cream shawl, lipstick perfect, posture perfect, not a hair out of place. She knocked like we were discussing table linens and not the public collapse of my marriage. "Emma, sweetheart," she said when I opened the door. "Adrian just needs a little space." A little space? It's our wedding night. Diane lowered her voice. "Please don't let this become something ugly." Something in me went cold. "Was he with you?" Her pause was tiny, but real. "No," she said. "And for your own sake, stop asking questions tonight." Then she turned and walked away while I stood there in a white dress that suddenly felt like a costume. And when Tessa looked past me into the hall, she saw what Diane had dropped. It was a parking stub from the hotel's private garage, folded in half and damp from where it had brushed the melted ice bucket in the hall. Tessa picked it up before I could move. Printed across the top was a time stamp, 11:18 p.m. Under that, a handwritten note in blue ink, "Penthouse side exit." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," Tessa said, taking a photo, "your mother-in-law is lying." I should have collapsed then. Instead, some stubborn part of me kept reaching for a version of events where this was survivable. Maybe Adrian had panicked. Maybe Diane was covering for something embarrassing, but not unforgivable. Maybe the right conversation would shrink this nightmare down to a size I could carry. At 8:06 the next morning, After no sleep at all, Adrian finally called. I answered on the first ring so fast I bit my tongue. Emma. He sounded tired, not devastated. Controlled. That hurt almost more than the disappearance. Where are you? A pause. At my condo. You left me alone on our wedding night. I know. That was all he offered, so I filled the silence with anger. Your mother wasn't sick. The valet saw you leave. Diane dropped a garage stub outside our room. Do not lie to me again. He exhaled like I was being difficult. This is exactly why I asked for a few hours. I actually laughed. Because I noticed? Because you escalate. He snapped, and then his voice softened. Emma, listen to me. Something personal came up. I can explain, but not with Tessa in your ear and half the city watching. Then explain now. Another pause. Then, there are financial issues. Family issues. Things I was trying to handle after the wedding. The room around me went still. What family issues? Not on the phone. I looked at Tessa, who had gone motionless beside me. Did you marry me while hiding something from me? I asked. Don't say it like that. How exactly should I say it, Adrian? He was quiet long enough for me to hear my own breathing. Then he asked me to file our certificate before Monday, and I understood why. By noon, I had changed out of the dress, washed off the makeup, and started doing something ugly and useful. Tessa took my laptop. I took my phone. We built a timeline. 11:02 p.m. Adrian seen near the bar with an unknown man in a charcoal suit. 11:18, garage stub issued at the penthouse side exit. 11:23, valet sees Adrian drive out through the private garage. 12:34 a.m. Text claiming Diane had a health scare. 8:06 a.m. Phone call asking me to make sure the marriage certificate gets filed Monday. When facts line up that neatly, your body understands danger before your heart agrees. We started with the obvious. Adrian and I shared a wedding planning email folder. Buried under florist confirmations and seating charts was a hotel reservation I had never noticed because the confirmation address was masked by an auto-forward rule. It wasn't our honeymoon suite. It was a one-night booking at the Harbor Crest, 12 minutes from the venue. Check-in at 11:45 p.m. One guest, king room, paid with Adrian's personal card. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. He said he went home. Tessa said quietly. I know. The second clue came from a photo dump one of my cousins uploaded at 9:17 that morning. In the background of a blurry dance floor picture taken at 10:56, Adrian was visible near the bar, angled toward the man in the dark suit. The cream envelope was in his hand. If I zoomed in, I could just make out black printed letters on the front. N. Mercer. Tessa. I said, do you know that name? She frowned. No, but we're going to. The hotel manager, Noah Mercer, called me back 40 minutes later after Tessa left a message saying there had been a possible security issue tied to our event. His voice was calm, careful, and immediately alert when I gave my name. Emma Vale, he asked. The new last name made me feel sick. Yes. A beat of silence. Then, Ms. Vale, I believe I have information you need, but I'd rather not say it over an unsecured line. I sat up straighter. Did you see my husband last night? Then Noah gave me a room number that should never have existed. The room Noah gave me was a conference room inside the wedding hotel, away from the lobby and brunch crowd, with one long table and no windows. He was in his early 40s, plain navy suit, no performance in him at all. Before he could say more, Diane walked in. She stopped when she saw me sitting across from Noah, and for the first time since the wedding, something cracked in her expression. Not grief. Fear. What is this? She asked. Noah stood. Ms. Vale, thank you for joining us. I wasn't invited, she said. Your assistant told me my son left paperwork here. My pulse jumped. Paperwork. Diane looked at me, then at the closed folder in front of Noah, and recalculated in real time. Her shoulders softened. Her voice dropped into that maternal register she used to make cruelty sound like guidance. Emma, sweetheart, you are exhausted. Whatever Adrian did, humiliating him won't help you. I laughed once. Interesting choice of words. She ignored that. Marriages survive worse than one bad night. One bad night. He vanished. He lied about you being ill. He told me to file the certificate before I do anything rash. Why does the timing matter? Diane's face didn't move, but her fingers tightened around her handbag strap. It matters, she said carefully, because once families start involving lawyers and public accusations, things become irreversible. Noah opened the folder. Some things already are. Diane turned to him sharply. You are overstepping. He met her gaze. Actually, I'm trying to prevent fraud. The word hit the room like shattered glass. I stared at Noah. Diane stared at him harder. Then she shifted tactics and looked back at me with sudden softness. Emma, you do not understand the pressure Adrian is under. My husband's estate was structured in ways that were restrictive. He panicked. That is all. Estate. Structured. Restrictive. Each word slid into place beside the others until I could finally see the outline of what they'd both been hiding. So this is about money, I said. Diane's chin lifted. It is about family. No. It's about what my marriage was worth to yours. Noah slid a printed document across the table, and the first line made my hands go numb. The document was a copy of an estate memorandum. The date sat in the corner, February 14th. Subject: Final disbursement conditions for Adrian Vale. My eyes dropped to the paragraph Noah had highlighted. Under the amended terms of the Thomas Vale Family Trust, beneficiary Adrian Vale shall receive final distribution of $750,000 upon legal marriage before his 35th birthday, contingent upon recorded certificate and absence of active fraud review. I read it twice. Then I put the paper down because my hands had started shaking. My God, I said. Diane folded her arms. It was his money. His grandfather's wishes. It was motivation, Noah corrected, especially given the loan defaults. I looked up. What loan defaults? That answer came from Noah too, piece by careful piece. Adrian had taken out high-interest private loans against future commissions and a condo project that had stalled months earlier. 2 notes were already in default. One lender had sent a representative to the wedding to get signed acknowledgement of service. The cream envelope I saw at the bar had likely been exactly that. Adrian had been running out of time and money. Still, desperation didn't explain leaving me in a white dress unless there was something else waiting for him. Noah slid a second page across the table. It was a reservation record from the Harbor Crest, pulled because Adrian had used the same corporate account number he'd used at our venue. Check-in 11:41 p.m. 2 guests. 1 king room. Late arrival requested. Airport transfer scheduled 4:45 a.m. 2 guests. I felt every inch of blood drain from my body. Diane's mouth tightened. I told him that part was unforgivable. I turned to her. That part. She realized too late what she'd admitted. Noah showed me one more email. A new apartment lease signed under Adrian's middle name and a woman's first initial. Same phone number. Same billing zip code. Same week as our wedding. Not panic. Not a mistake. Infrastructure. I pressed my palms to my eyes until stars burst behind them. The wedding had not been the beginning of a marriage. It had been the final step in a transaction, and somewhere inside it was another woman. Then Noah told me where Adrian had gone after the hotel. He didn't go straight to the airport. He went to the apartment first. Noah knew because Adrian had called the hotel's corporate line from the Harbor Crest at 12:02 a.m., asking for a scanned invoice tied to the wedding suite. He used a secondary email address linked to the apartment lease, something I had never seen before. The address on the lease was in a new luxury building 15 minutes from Adrian's condo. Tessa drove because my hands were too unsteady to trust with traffic. I sat in the passenger seat with my wedding bouquet, now brown at the edges, still lying on the floor mat where someone had thrown it the night before. The city looked offensively normal. Say it, Tessa said quietly as we pulled up outside the building. I can't. You can. So I did. He married me for the trust money. The words felt rotten in my mouth. And maybe reputation, she said. Men like him don't usually commit one kind of fraud at a time. The doorman wouldn't let us upstairs, but he did enough with his face when I showed him Adrian's photo that confirmation settled over me anyway. He knew him. More than that, he knew not to say so. Back in the car, I opened our old texts from the week before the wedding and started reading them like a stranger. Can't wait to wake up next to you as my wife. After Saturday, everything settles down. Trust me a little longer. That last one nearly made me throw up. At home that night, I sat on my bathroom floor in one of Adrian's old college t-shirts and replayed the ceremony video someone had already posted to a shared album. I watched myself walking toward him, smiling like I was safe. I watched him take my hands and say vows he must have known he was already violating while he spoke them. That was the part that broke me more than the money. He had looked directly into my face while using me. I didn't sleep. At 4:48 a.m., I opened my notes app and typed every question I still needed answered. At 4:53, an unknown number sent me a screenshot of a flight confirmation with Adrian's name on it. And there were 2 seats on the booking. The screenshot came from a blocked number, but the image was clear. Sunday, 5:40 a.m., Cedar Atlantic to Charleston. Passenger 1, Adrian Vale. Passenger 2, L. Hart. No message, just proof. I stared at the name for a long time. There had been an entire section of my husband's life populated by strangers while I was choosing centerpieces and tasting cake. Tessa called the number twice. No answer. Save it, she said. Don't chase. Build. So I built. I printed the trust memo. I saved the Harbor Crest booking. I screenshotted Adrian's texts about Diane's fake health scare and his demand that I file the marriage certificate. Noah sent a written summary of the billing records he could legally verify. The valet manager emailed confirmation that Adrian exited through the private garage at 11:23. I downloaded my cousin's dance floor photo and marked the timestamp. I found the county clerk instructions showing Saturday certificates were typically recorded the next business day if delivered by either spouse. And then I found the voice memo. It was tucked inside a shared cloud folder Adrian and I had used for vendor documents, probably uploaded by accident from one of his sync devices. 27 seconds long. Recorded at 11:07 p.m. Diane's voice came first. Once the certificate is recorded, the review window closes. Adrian answered, low and tense. And if she refuses? Then keep her calm until Monday. My vision narrowed so hard I thought I might faint. There was shuffling, then Adrian again. Lila is already waiting. I cannot drag this out. Lila. L. Hart, Diane said. Then act like a husband for 48 hours. The recording ended there. Tessa sat beside me on my apartment floor while I played it again and again. This wasn't a collapse. It was a plan with contingencies. Around sunset, my phone lit up with Adrian's name. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Emma, he said softly, I'm coming over. Please don't do anything stupid before we talk. I looked at the evidence spread across my coffee table. Then I unlocked the door before he knocked. He looked perfect. That was the first thing that made me want to hit him. Not because he was handsome, but because there was no visible wreckage on him. No swelling around the eyes. No sign that he had detonated a woman's life less than 24 hours earlier. He stood in my doorway in a navy coat, hair neat, holding the same face he used at charity galas when he wanted people to trust him. Can I come in? He asked. You already know the answer. Say what you came to say. He stepped inside. Tessa stayed in the kitchen on purpose, loud enough to remind him he wasn't alone. For a moment, Adrian just looked at me, and I hated that my body still recognized him before my anger did. 2 years of love doesn't vanish because the evidence changes. It lingers like a reflex. I handled this badly, he said. I laughed. Handled. His eyes closed briefly. Emma, please. I am trying. No. You are managing exposure. Something flashed across his face at that. I had a panic attack, he said. I couldn't breathe. My mother was spiraling. There were lenders at the wedding. I made a terrible decision. You booked another hotel room. You had a flight. You had a woman waiting. His head snapped up. Who told you that? Interesting, I thought. Not is that true? Who told you? I folded my arms. You are not in a position to ask questions. He paced once, then came back softer. Lila was a mistake that got complicated before you and I were serious. We were sending invitations. I was ending it. You were boarding flights. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Listen to me, he said. The trust money would have solved everything. I was going to make it right with you after Monday. I swear to God. That sentence killed whatever love I had left. Meaning, after the certificate recorded, after the money released, after I had served my purpose. I swallowed hard. You married me as a bridge loan. His face tightened. That is not fair. From the kitchen, Tessa said, it's generous. He looked toward her, furious, then back at me. Do not destroy both our lives because of one catastrophic mistake. I stared at him for a long time, and then I asked whether his mother knew about Lila too. He didn't answer my question. That was answer enough. Instead, Adrian did what he always did when truth cornered him. He tried to turn complexity into intimacy. He lowered his voice. He stepped closer. He made everything sound like a burden shared between adults rather than a betrayal inflicted by one. My mother knew I was under pressure, he said carefully. She did not know every detail. Did she know enough to help you stall me until Monday? He looked away. That tiny movement gave me more satisfaction than I am proud of. Tessa came out of the kitchen holding her phone. Great. Since we're almost doing honesty, should I play the voice memo now or later? Adrian went still. What voice memo? The one where your mother says the review window closes after recording. His face emptied. Not shocked. Calculating. Then he tried one last angle. Emma, if you take this public, you will humiliate yourself too. There are photos, guests, legal paperwork. Do you really want your name attached to a circus? There it was. Not remorse. Branding. And that was the moment my grief finally grew a spine. No, I said. I want my name attached to the truth. He left 10 minutes later without another apology. Only a warning that people with money and lawyers could make this messier than I understood. The second the door shut, Tessa exhaled and said, Okay, we stop reacting now. By midnight, we had a plan. I texted Diane and said I wanted one calm conversation before involving attorneys or the clerk. I told her I was willing to come to Sunday brunch at her house if Adrian was there, and if Noah could join to help clarify the paperwork. Diane responded in under 2 minutes. Of course, darling. Family first. Noah agreed after I forwarded the voice memo and Adrian's texts. He also brought a written notice from Trust Counsel stating that any disbursement would be frozen pending review if evidence of fraudulent inducement emerged before recording. Sunday at 11 a.m., I walked into Diane's dining room wearing jeans, no ring, and the pearl earrings I'd bought for myself before the wedding. Adrian stood when he saw me. Then he noticed the folder in my hands. Diane had set the table anyway. That detail will stay with me forever. The fruit platter, the folded napkins, the polished silver coffee pot. She had laid out a family brunch around a fraud review like etiquette could still save her son. Emma, she said, sit down. Let's not be theatrical. I took the chair at the end of the table instead of the one beside Adrian. Tessa sat next to me. Noah remained standing until he placed his folder down and said, This conversation should be brief. Adrian's mouth tightened. Who exactly are you here for? The truth, Noah said. I opened first with the easiest evidence. The valet exit time. The Harbor Crest booking. The flight confirmation for Adrian and Lila Hart. Diane tried to interrupt twice. Tessa told her, No, you've all had enough uninterrupted time. Then I played the voice memo. Diane's own voice filled the dining room. Once the certificate is recorded, the review window closes. Adrian lunged for the phone. Tessa moved it out of reach before he touched it. This is insane, he said. You're missing context. Then provide it, I said. He stood there breathing hard, looking from me to Noah to his mother, searching for the least expensive lie. Finally, he said, I loved Emma. I do love Emma. Things got complicated. I slid the final document across the table, the apartment lease bearing his middle name, Lila's initial, and a move-in date 4 days before our wedding. The room went silent. That apartment was temporary, he said. For which life? I asked. Noah unfolded the trust notice last. His tone never changed. Based on materials provided before certificate recording, counsel will recommend immediate freeze pending review of fraudulent inducement and concealment of debt. Adrian went pale. No, he said. Not to me. To Noah. You can't do that. I'm not doing it, Noah replied. Your conduct did. Then, for the first time, Adrian dropped the polished voice and looked exactly like a scared man who thought charm was the same as character. He pointed at me and said, You would ruin everything over one night? I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. You ruined everything before I walked down the aisle, I said. And Diane made the mistake of finally speaking honestly. He was supposed to stay through Monday. Diane said it with one hand braced against the back of her chair, like she had finally grown too tired to perform motherhood and strategy at the same time. I stared at her. Excuse me? Her eyes filled, but not in a way that moved me. I told him to wait, to handle this with dignity. I never told him to humiliate you. Tessa made a sound like disgust, turning into laughter. You're drawing a line at manners? Adrian snapped. Mother, stop talking. But Diane had slipped past caution and into confession. He was drowning, she said. The trust was his only chance to stabilize. The lenders would have destroyed him. I thought if he married well and settled down, maybe he would become the version of himself everyone kept believing in. Married well. I had never heard my personhood reduced so elegantly. Noah gathered his papers. For everyone's sake, no one here should attempt to file that certificate. I won't, I said. Adrian looked at me with panic now. Emma, please, don't do this vindicatively. I laughed in his face. The next 2 weeks were ugly. I met with an attorney and began annulment proceedings on grounds of fraud. I moved Adrian's clothes into boxes and made him retrieve them through a third party. Wedding gifts addressed to both of us got cataloged and returned where possible. The venue still sent the final floral invoice. My bank still processed the catering balance. Pain, it turns out, remains administrative. Socially, the fallout spread in rings. Some guests sent apologies for gossiping. Some never contacted me at all, which was its own answer. Diane stopped calling after my lawyer requested all communication go through counsel. Adrian texted 3 times, once to say he was sorry, once to blame stress, once to ask whether I would reconsider out of compassion. I saved every message and answered none. The hardest cost was internal. I cried in grocery store parking lots. I couldn't watch romance in anything, even commercials. But I also started therapy, slept with my phone on silent, and relearned what a day feels like when no one was arranging your reality behind your back. A month later, Noah forwarded a final update from Trust Counsel. And Adrian lost far more than just the money. Noah's email was short and almost clinically polite. Trust disbursement denied. Internal review expanded. Lender actions pending. That was it. 3 lines. No triumph. Just consequences arriving in the plain clothes they usually wear. Later I heard through mutual acquaintances that Adrian's condo went on the market within 6 weeks. His firm quietly removed his bio from its website. Diane listed the family house that autumn and told people she was downsizing for peace. Maybe that was even true. The annulment finalized 3 months after the wedding. I thought I would cry in the courthouse bathroom when the clerk stamped the papers, but I didn't. I just sat in my car afterward with both hands on the steering wheel and waited for the shaking to pass. Relief is not always warm. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion finally being allowed to sit down. Healing, for me, was not glamorous either. It was therapy on Tuesdays. It was changing every password. It was learning that I hated peonies now because they smelled like the reception hall. It was telling new people, when necessary, that yes, something awful happened, and no, I was not ashamed of surviving it. Shame belongs to the person who constructs the lie, not the one who believed it in good faith. Tessa stayed. That matters. She brought groceries when I forgot to eat, sent me stupid memes at midnight, and never once said, "At least you found out early." Noah checked in twice, formally and kindly, then disappeared back into the professional distance I was grateful for. A year later, I took the pearl earrings out of the box again and wore them to dinner alone. Not a sad dinner. Not a brave one either. Just dinner. I ordered pasta, drank 1 glass of wine, and watched rain stripe the restaurant window without feeling chased by memory. What I learned is simple and expensive. When someone asks you to ignore your own confusion so they can keep control of the story, do not help them. Ask the ugly question. Check the timestamp. Save the message. Love is not proven by how much deceit you can absorb without flinching. The last thing I kept from that wedding was my name. And for the first time, it felt completely, undeniably mine.